The Arbor was the pride of the Seven Kingdoms, the Redwyne fleet the treasure of the royal garrison. It was not always this way. Those of Valyrian descent long held the naval power in Westeros, but in recent days, that responsibility fell on a different family. Even as the façade of peace crumbled and the kingdoms fractured into factions, the Redwynes kept to the crown, as much through fear as through loyalty. They were the only ones with any hope of holding the Ironborn and the other upstart kings at bay, thus proving a useful ally to their liegelords. The leader of this naval power was Paxter Redwyne. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. The Lord of the Arbor, Paxter Redwyne wielded his supremacy at sea like a club against his foes, before, during, and after Robert's Rebellion. In the times of the current narrative, he kept to this strategy, even as his allies tumbled all about him. Soon, he and his fleet became the greatest hope that remained for the reeling forces of the crown, a beacon of strength in the smoldering rubble of a regime greatly fallen. So, who exactly is Paxter Redwyne, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Paxter Redwyne was born on or near the year 269 AC in the Arbor, to Lord Runsford Redwyne and his wife. Little was revealed of the man's childhood and upbringing, but at some point in his early adult life, he inherited the ruling seat of the Arbor. Paxter was married to Lady Mina Tyrell, his cousin and sister to his liegelord Mace Tyrell of Highgarden. The pair had multiple children together, including two sons, Horus and Arbor, and one daughter, Dismera. During Robert's Rebellion, Lord Paxter followed the actions of Lord Mace, staying true to the Targaryens against the usurpers. His ships were the ones to lay siege to Storm's End, and Paxter and his men drank and ate lavishly, while Lord Stannis Baratheon suffered through a meager year behind the walls of the fortress. Paxter and his ploy were only unsuccessful due to the trickery of Davos Seaworth and the following might of Lord Eddard Stark. When the Lord of Winterfell arrived to break the siege, the head of House Redwyne bent the knee to new king Robert Baratheon. Paxter served this monarch just as well, participating in the quelling of Greyjoy's rebellion, and providing naval support whenever called upon up until the day of Robert's death. Lord Paxter Redwyne was a gaunt, hardy man, with bent and rounded shoulders and a thin frame. His most recognizable feature was his balding head, surrounded in part only by tufts of bright orange hair. And while his physicality had begun to wane into the days of the War of the Five Kings, his resolve and strength of numbers suffered no such defeats. As he is not present in the first volume of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Game of Thrones, Paxter Redwyne first appears in the second entry, A Clash of Kings. His sons Horus and Arbor are held captive in King's Landing by Queen Cersei Lannister, and thus Paxter is the only Western lord to forego allegiance to self-declared King Renly Baratheon. He appears all the more prescient for it, however, as Renly soon perishes to foul magic, and King Stannis subsumes the majority of his bannermen. Those who refuse the Lord of Dragonstone's call regroup at Bitterbridge and Highgarden, where they are met by Lord Peter Baelish in an effort to recruit them to the side of the crown. All the while, Lord Paxter has remained loyal, and he serves with the bolstered king's forces at the Battle of the Blackwater, providing aid in defeating the upstart man from the Eastern Isle. Paxter Redwyne again appears in A Storm of Swords. He serves as a close advisor, especially where ships are concerned, to ruling King Joffrey Baratheon, and attends both the boys' doomed wedding, as well as that of Tyrion Lannister to Sansa Stark. Called to testify at the Imp's trial, Paxter, of course, confesses to Tyrion's inconsiderate conduct toward his nephew Joffrey, aiding in the man's doom. In A Feast for Crows, Lord Redwyne plays the most essential role of his life under the new ruling family. He is sent to lead the siege of Dragonstone, as he had done so many years before outside Storm's End, to root out the remaining forces of Stannis Baratheon left to harry the crown. Paxter plans to conquer the place without violence, instead turning to starvation and trickery, but his scheme proves too lengthy. The ironborn are no longer idle across the continent, and Queen Cersei is in need of her fleet. In a move with many implications, she sends Kingsguard warrior Sir Loras Tyrell to take Dragonstone by force, and thus frees Paxter and his ships to combat the Reavers in the west. But in A Dance with Dragons, Cersei has fallen from grace. Lord Paxter is granted a seat upon the small council as Master of Ships, and he sails with his men for the Arbor as deceit rears its ugly head upon the mainland. In the modern climate of Westeros, it is not any house of Valyrian descent that holds the greatest navy. It is the Redwynes, and they are led by their patriarch, Lord Paxter. From the onset of the War of the Five Kings, Paxter Redwyne is placed in a precarious position due to the withholding of his children by Queen Cersei Lannister, and is thus the only Lord of the Reach to remain steadfast with the crown. Of course, this is done more of fear for his sons' lives than loyalty, but it still counts for something. Therefore, when the dust settles and the remnants of Renly's great army either end up backing Stannis or Cersei anyway, Paxter and the Redwynes seem stauncher in return. But this relationship is not nearly so one-sided. The crown has need of such a bannerman, nearly as much as he has need of a liege. Queen Cersei and her sons lean heavily on Lord Paxter and his fleet, especially in the aftermath of the Battle of the Blackwater. Lord Redwyne and his ships lay siege upon the remnants of Stannis' coastal army on Dragonstone, and then move west to halt the Ironborn onslaught. But in the midst of these tasks, treachery takes hold in the capital, and Paxter's orders become unclear. Due to his knowledge and prowess, he is named to the small council, and he still wields the greatest navy in the land. Elsewhere across Westeros, however, the political landscape is shifting. Lord Redwyne remains the strength of the current occupants of the crown, but such a position can become quite precarious, especially when the guarantee of royal backing falls away. He will soon be forced to show his true colors, and to display if he fights out of loyalty or of fear. Lord Paxter Redwyne wielded great power, though he touted it less than many lords with lesser backing. His navy was the greatest in Westeros, rivaling the might of the Ironborn fleet. Out of necessity, he threw in his lot with the crown, and ended up above his peers circumstantially. The kings and queen wielded his navy like a hammer upon the battlefield, and Paxter commanded his forces with the strength and fortitude he had always possessed. But on the mainland, the tide was turning. The Iron Throne became shrouded in uncertainty, and the Lord of the Arbor held as many doubts as any man. He sailed on, but his true ends are yet unknown. What is known, however, was that Paxter Redwyne was the strength of a failing regime. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive reviews, fiction, and more. And sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.